Meet PitchDB, the ultimate platform for speakers looking to make their mark on podcasts, conferences, and media outlets. PitchDB provides access to over 3 million platforms, ensuring you find the perfect avenue for your message. With AI integrations, your bios and pitches are tailored uniquely to each opportunity, giving you the edge you need. Join now at pitchdb.com.
Welcome to Your Brand Amplified, the podcast where we interview marketers, publicists, and brands to learn their stories, what makes them tick, and tips and tricks that make a difference. This is Anika Jackson, and today I have Matthew Stafford, who is maybe the king, perhaps, of revenue optimization with his organization, BuildGrowScale. Matthew, thank you so much for being here. And I know that you've been working in this industry of e-commerce, which I think is going to be more and more important as time goes on. It's highly relevant, and it's going to be something that people keep on wanting to pursue and figuring out how to crack, right? How to break through everybody else who's doing e-commerce or digital marketing and advertising and figure out how to get themselves in front of the right customer. But before we get into that, I wanted to ask, how did you get into the world of e-commerce and digital?
Yeah, so it's a funny story, very unlikely. I owned a commercial concrete business, and so I did that for 23 years. I traveled all around the country. We were pouring concrete for big box stores like Menards and Lowe's and Home Depot. And I had never used my computer for anything other than to send like blueprints and emails and invoices, and never sold anything or bought anything online that way. And I went to a Tony Robbins event, and he was selling a program called Money Masters. And so each month you got a new DVD. And the DVDs, the very first one that I got was Frank Kern. And it was how to teach your parrot how to talk by selling ebooks. And then there was like Mike Koenigs and Brendan Bouchard and Russell Brunson and all these other people. And so over that 12 months, I just saw all of these examples of people making money online rather than traveling, because I was on the road about 200 days a year.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, yeah, in 5 years, I set a goal. In 5 years, I'm going to be 100% online, because I can actually scale a business and do all that without having to worry about the weather and just all the other things. And it was almost to the month that was true that I had sold the concrete business. I had 2 salons at the time, sold both of those, and was 100% online 5 years after that. And now I've been online 100% for about 10 years. So
amazing. Well, Congratulations. To go from concrete and salons to digital, it seems like such a big leap.
Yeah. Well, I own the domain Bricks to Clicks, and from brick and mortar to click and order. So I thought that there was like there's some destiny there. But I think honestly, what's helped me do better than a lot is because I was able to translate a lot of the stuff in the offline world to the online. And so instead of just copying everybody else and what they were doing, I feel like a lot of the things that people take for granted, or they assume, oh, we don't need to do that because it's online, we would do it and establish a lot more trust and a lot more credibility and several different things that really came from the offline world and made the online work better.
Yeah, I would love to dig into that, because I do think there's a lot of people who go into digital marketing who think, oh, this is easy. Everybody's online. Somebody else has created a blueprint for me and you can just follow it. And I understand you went to Tony Robbins. You learned from all of these great people who are doing amazing things, but you were able to figure out how to make it work for you and your life, and take all this other real world in-person experience that you built up and translate that.
Yeah. I mean, the way I described it sounds like it was an instant success, but that's not really the way that it went. It was during that 5 years, I was trying all kinds of things and doing that at night after we would pour concrete all day. And so I was trying to establish a way to generate revenue. And for sure, I would say, probably 8 or 10 tries, were total busts. I'd never made money. All I did is spend money. But all of those, I just looked at them as, okay, this is my college education. This is how I'm, going to school and figuring this out. And so it never discouraged me. And I never thought like, I'm not going to figure it out. This isn't going to work for me. I was like, I'm just going to keep doing it until I figure out where I can do well. And early on, the first real success that I had was using Facebook ads to run to t-shirts. And so there was a site called Teespring, and you were able to make designs, put them on the shirt, and then run ads to it. And I just was very creative with that. And then I also got very creative with how to run the ads. And I started the whole name t-shirts, which eventually I shared it with a whole bunch of marketers, and we weren't allowed to do it anymore because everybody got freaked out that people could find their names on Facebook.
Oh no.
But yeah, in that first 36 months, 28 months or so, we did about $15 million worth of t-shirts.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was crazy. And I started storing the data back then. So I knew like what styles sold the most, what colors, et cetera. And then was really good about not offering too many.
Yeah.
Because I'd read a lot about like psychology and human behavior. And so I've applied a lot of that to the sites. And, the paradox of choice is really real. And so a lot of times offering people too many choices actually creates a problem. People think, oh, if I give them a bunch of choices, then I'll have more chances to make a sale. And it's actually the exact opposite. That hurts your sales.
So it's creating a sense of overwhelm.
Yeah, or even, I like this one, and I like this one, and I like this one. I'll just come back later when I can decide. And so they'd end up not coming back, or you have to pay to get them back, or, go through all the other marketing channels. If you don't have those set up, then, you've spent the money to get them there and then not made the sale. And so early on, my theory was traffic's not really the issue, because if your average e-commerce converts at 2%, and so I thought like, okay, doing the numbers, that means 2 people out of every 100 that visit are buying something and 98 people are leaving.
Right.
And everybody's like, oh, you need more ads. You need better ads. So you can get more people. And I'm like, well, why don't I get 2 more of the 98 people that clicked on a link and came to the site, and I would double my business without buying any more traffic. Yeah. And so that made me look at how do I optimize the site so that it's a good user experience. And then from that good user experience, we would create higher conversions. Well, now if we're getting 4 sales where our competitors are getting 2 for the same traffic, now have an advantage and can buy more traffic because we're going to be more profitable. And it just becomes this perpetual cycle of where we get to make more and more sales and buy more and more traffic because our sites just convert better.
Yeah. And what's really interesting as well is you've worked in industries that are very important still. We need people who can pour concrete. We need people who have, the skills to do manual labor. That will never go away. But we also need people who really understand the online world, and it's always changing. There's so many people who think, I'm going to start a business. I'm just going to throw my website up there and people will just show up, and I'm going to do a little bit of ads, but they don't think about, oh yeah, SEO optimization. How are we going to make the user experience really robust from the beginning? And so I'd love to hear some of the techniques that you took from your real experience, real world experience, into the digital world, and how that made a difference for you. And then how did you turn that into helping other businesses?
Ooh, that's a long question.
Yeah. We have time.
We'll break it down into a few categories. Early on, I would say I had run across some of Dan Kennedy's marketing, and that's how I marketed my salon. So the concrete business, thankfully, I was a really hard worker. And so after about 2 years, that entire business, I had never run an ad for it. So it was all word of mouth, and it just grew, and we started doing bigger jobs and then got referred to general contractors, and it just grew that way. So it was really very, very foreign to me when I bought the salons, because I lived in Michigan. And so in the wintertime, you don't pour concrete. But these tanning salons were really busy. And a friend of mine or his parents came up to me and said, hey, you should buy our salon for your wife. I'm like, okay. And they looked at it, and 7 days later I owned it. And so that's when I really had to start learning how to apply the stuff that I was doing to those salons and actually create traffic and advertising and marketing that works. And so a lot of the marketing that I learned from that helped me figure out. That's why I looked at when everybody said, oh, buy more ads. I'm like, how do we make the ads more effective? How do we get more results from the people that are landing on the site, et cetera? Where in the digital world, I think that just people don't actually view all those people coming as actual people. And they just see it as a number. And so for me, I also translated it. Like I kept trying to say, okay, in the store, how would I sell this? Face to face.
Right.
And so your website is your customer with your client. And so if your website doesn't communicate very well, the client's not going to know, like, and trust you and want to buy from you. And the other thing that I'd learned was from Dean Jackson was enter the conversation they're having in their head at the point that they discover you. And so back when I first got started, you'd see buy now, add to cart all over the homepage. In fact, you still see it, which is crazy, on, $200-$300 items or even $100. And I always ask the store owner, do you have enough information right now to spend $200 or $300 on this product? And they're like, no. And I'm like, then why would you have an add to cart button?
Yeah.
Who's going to add to cart? And they're not going to go, oh, I'm going to add that to my cart and then go look at it, because that feels weird and broken and it feels like a commitment. They're not ready to make a commitment yet. They're ready to learn more. Maybe a learn more button or more options would be a totally different conversation in their head. And so we started testing that stuff and it worked really, really well. And then, we just applied that type of principle through each different page of a store. We looked at the homepage as kind of top of funnel. You need to know when you first get there, do I trust these people? Do they sell what I want? And can I find what I'm looking for? Like, that's it for your homepage. Your category page is just a filter. Like, a lot of people try to sell on it. It's all you're supposed to do is take, if you have 100 options, make it very easy for them to pick the 5 that they like and then go look at those 5. But if they have to scroll through everything, conversions go down. And then all the information that they need to make a buying decision would be on the product page. So we don't put it on the homepage. We don't put it on the category page. All we're trying to do is get them to move off of that page and land on what they're looking for. And when you get that done, the less time they're on your homepage and the less time they're on your filter page, the higher they convert. Because essentially they're not looking and trying to shop a whole bunch of $300 products and they don't even know what's involved in, each product. That's to be done later. And so we move them through that process right away. And that's our sites, convert more than double what the average is. Some of them quite a bit more than that. And, they scale them to, $1.5 million months, $5 million months. We have some really big stores. And so we know that it works to about 5, now almost 6 years ago, we stopped counting. But back then we were at 400 million through our cart. And and it's like, okay, people don't really grasp what $400 million of the sales.
Right.
So if I say it's 800, who cares? So for us, it was just like, it's a lot and we have a lot of data and more than most people will ever have. If you think about it, like if you're a really big store and you do 5 million a month, which we had a couple stores that do that, that's still 60 million a year. So we have, 10 times more data than that alone. We have insights that they don't have, even though they're doing that much volume. And so for us to be across and have all those different owners, smart owners, sharing ideas with us and us sharing ideas with them, the level of what we did raised very fast as a group think.
Wow. It just strikes me because I'm one of those people who I might see something online. I want to research it. I want to look at reviews. I will go to the website, but then the pop-ups always start. Enter your email, enter your cell phone number. And that really turns me off because when I do that, I'm not at that point, to your point, where I'm ready to make a decision. I'm still in the, exploratory phase, and I'm still comparing your product to somebody else's product and doing my research. And then maybe I'll be ready to convert, but on my time, not because you're sending me a fire sale offer or something. And it's one of the things that drives me crazy right now about the digital world. So I love the fact that you've figured out how to set things up so that people feel like they're not being pushed or frenzied along the journey, that they actually have that time to feel like they are developing a relationship with a brand.
Yeah, we recommend look at your average time on site. Maybe it's 90 seconds.
No.
If you really want the pop-up, which they are a good idea, you do capture a lot of people that you can eventually bring back for buyers, but don't interrupt the buying process or the shopping process. So if your average time on site is 90 seconds, have it pop up at 80 seconds, not the moment they land on the page.
Nice.
The other thing that it does is it devalues your product if right off the bat you go, hey, I'm going to give you money off if you stay. It feels desperate. And so if you're hey, go ahead and shop, look at what you want. And if you decide to leave, we'd like to give you a discount so that, eventually you come back. That's a smart business.
Yeah.
But to do it, smack it right in before they literally know who you are, what your site offers, why they would buy from you over someone else, it's way too soon. It's literally walking into the bar and kissing the girl and then asking for a name. That doesn't make sense. You wouldn't do that in real life. So why are you treating your customers like that?
Right.
And another thing that I always get on people for is, first time buyer, 30% off. And I'm why would you do that? Why would you advertise that for any reason? And they're what do you mean? I'm so you're telling me that if I buy from you, when I come back, I have to pay the higher price because the first time buyers get 30% off. I have to pay a higher price. I'm a repeat customer. I'm way more valuable to you than the first time buyer. And so to me, that's a huge turnoff. I would literally not buy from someone that did that, or I would just choose a false email, which that's what they get. They get all kinds of junk emails. And so then it shows as a new buyer, and it just creates a whole bunch of back end issues and deliverability and all this stuff. And so people just don't think through looking at all of that as, what does the buyer think when they come there, to figure out how do they get their answers to their questions so that they can make a buying decision, instead of you looking at your site as the owner and going, I just need to make more sales, and one feels really salesy and slimy, and the other one feels like it's customer centric. And believe it or not, that small paradigm shift will have a huge difference in how many sales you make, and your repeat customer rate, and your average order value, all the things that you need to maximize nowadays because of, the cost of ads. It's going up and
Yeah, not just the cost of ads, but also now email deliverability, third-party cookies, all of these different things are changing. Yeah. So that owned media, your website, that really is something that nobody's going to take away, that you have control over, and you have control over that customer journey and experience.
Yeah, the experience matters. People remember how you treated them.
Yeah. So I know you're in high demand for your services. You work with all these huge companies. Do you have resources that are available for people who might be starting their journey, or maybe they have a smaller budget to work with right now? There's still a way that they can learn from you and get value from all of the things that you've poured into over the past decade plus.
Yeah. So we have a blog, so you can go to buildgrowscale.com/blog, and there's all kinds of free content on there. A lot of the split tests that we've run, a lot of things. So a lot of people, in fact, we know our customer on average will basically visit there about 4 to 5 times before they become a customer. So there's a lot of good information on there, and we know that they come back for it. We also, in the menu, we have an incubator program. Right now it's $20 a month, and it's going to go up, but we basically put you in a Facebook group that has a couple hundred store owners. And so you can ask questions and people answer them, and we answer them in there. There's a challenge that you can go through that's $33. And we've used that we keep updating it, but we've been running that challenge for a couple of years because on the backside of it, there is an opportunity where you can join a membership that we have, which is a smaller, more intimate group where we're teaching what we're doing right now on our partner stores. And that is like $2,000 down and then $397 a month. So yeah, there really is a whole bunch of different ways. We actually have a e-commerce business blueprint, which is like $199, which is basically if you're just getting started, how to set your store up, all the best practices, things like that. So yeah, we've made it really available to everybody.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that you're pouring back into people with all of your experience. It's something that I think it's nice to meet other people who are, service-minded.
Yeah.
I think that's something that's helped you build up your success too, because you're putting so much out into the world and sharing so much knowledge that you're getting in return all of the clients, the sales for your own businesses, all of the other things. Now, I know that at some point you were having tons of success externally, but there's always that point where we go, is it really the money that matters or is everything else that matters? And I know I've gone up and down on that journey as well and gone, wow, I have aging parents, I have elderly dogs. My daughter is in high school. She's going to graduate in a couple of years. So I'd love to hear a little bit about that journey for you and how you figured out how to, marry the success externally and with your internal, I don't know if struggles is the right word, but figuring out how to make it more personal and also how to give yourself that time and energy to be able to pour into other areas of your life.
Yeah, I think probably the entrepreneurial dilemma is that doesn't go away. So it feels like you're always doing, one or the other. I think the way that I view it is our business is very much like it's cyclical, like the seasons. Mm-hmm. So there will be times when you really do have to have your head down and working really hard. And it's not necessarily on your schedule. Like when Apple decides to get rid of all the tracking and then all of a sudden marketers and everything's not working the same. And so all of a sudden you have stores that are spending all this money on ads and they don't know what's working, what's not working. And so I don't think that you could realistically, as long as you're always trying to grow and learn, go, oh yeah, I've arrived, I've done it. If we did that even for a little while in e-commerce, it would just pass us. The thing that I've found the most joy from is watching people, a lot of times single moms, sometimes, couples that get to come home from their corporate job because their store is doing well now. And the messages that I get, that to me is like, that's a lot of the fuel. I really, really like that. And for me, I think just the way my brain works, I love problem solving. And so I see these different things as a problem and how do we fix that and make it work better and have people be happier and want to come back more. And when that happens, yeah, you're more profitable. So you have more choices.
Nice.
And yeah, so I'm not sure I'm the best one to ask that because I really do enjoy working and probably do it a little more than normal. But I'm at that stage right now where I'm really, really enjoying it and having a lot of fun with it. So it is still a choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, thank you for that. When it comes to e-commerce, are there certain categories that you see doing or performing better than others right now? Or is it just really about the methods that you use to make sure that you're reaching the right customers?
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, so before COVID, online sales only accounted for about 10% of what was sold. During COVID, it went all the way up to like 33%. And now it's dropped back to like 27. Oh. But if you think about it, even at the height of it, only about 3 out of 10 things or, 30% of, what was sold was done online. So if you think about how many new adopters came into the online world during that period because it disrupted how they lived their life, knowing the opportunity moving forward, that's just going to continually grow. It gets me really excited to think, I really don't think that one industry is better because every single thing that we touch and use every day is sold, is sold and built. And so we need all of those things. I think what matters more is people not trying to be generic. So I don't see general stores selling very well anymore. Definitely not like drop shipping where, hey, we have 30 different widgets and they're all, totally unrelated to each other. People don't trust that because they've been burned so much. It's not a good feeling. You don't feel good there. And most of the people that do that, their stores are not very well organized. And so a lot of the principles of what makes you want to pull out your credit card and give it to a site and think you're going to get what you're ordering is if I'm buying shirts from you, I know that like you're selling good shirts. Or if I'm buying, pants from you, it's showing like your product photography and your copy and, the guarantee that you have, all these different things. I don't really think there's one industry that's easier than others. That's probably more determined by how much money people have to start the business. And so do you have to have minimum order quantities? Do you have to design the bottle, or can you sell someone else's and put a label on it? Mm-hmm. We always encourage people to try to do that stuff first, because then that way they can get their feet wet, figure out what they like, understand that, there's good times and there's bad times, and kind of make sure that journey's for them. Because, it's naive for everybody to think like, I'm going to start a business that's going to be successful. Mm-hmm. We know that that's just not true. And so if someone's selling you, hey, you buy this, you're going to crush it, that's terrible because you're setting a false expectation. And we've seen that a lot for a lot of years. And so for us, I kind of feel like we're the P90X model. Like, listen, you'll get results, but it's going to require a lot of work, and you're going to have to do you're going to have to sweat and figure that part out and figure this part out. And we'll give you best practices and tell you what's working right now. But like, that still doesn't do the work for you. You got to do the work, and it's up to you. And so it is a different approach. And for some people, we're not that magic button. And so they don't buy from us. But honestly, I don't want those customers because they're the ones that they have a false expectation of reality.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you mentioned P90X and DVDs earlier because we're of the same vintage. I think I still have P90X DVDs somewhere in the house.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'd love to hear a little bit about remarketing, because I think that's something that people also kind of scratch their heads at. And they may know how to do a little bit of A/B testing, but they don't know how to remarket. And then beyond remarketing, it's so much less expensive to retain customers if you can. So they don't know how to continue cultivating existing customers. Yeah. So I know that's, again, a few questions in one, but you can start wherever you feel comfortable.
Yeah, and I agree wholeheartedly with you. So it's much easier to make the second and third and fourth sale if you're a good quality business and you sell quality products. So if you're selling crap, people aren't going to come back and buy from you again. And so the goal isn't just to make a sale. The goal is to make a client. And that's why I don't call them customers. I call them clients, because you treat clients different than you treat a customer.
Yeah.
And so that little bit of how you view them changes how you treat them. And with the advantage now of ChatGPT, like people that didn't used to be able to write email sequences and do that stuff, you can get a pretty good base. And what I say is it's always easier to edit something than it is to start with a blank sheet of paper.
Oh, yeah.
So you can ask it to write the different sequences and be very specific about what you sell and what your demographic is and all this stuff. And it will write 90% of the copy, and then you go in there and give it your brand voice, touch it up, and start putting those in there. That matters a lot. So we have a welcome series, and the very first email, it talks about, hey, all was quiet in the factory, and we just got an order, and it has their name and where they ordered from and all this stuff, and talks about the party that's happening, and said, hey, when we clean up, we'll get your stuff package up and ship it, and we'll send you a notification. And we get tons and tons and tons of people reply to that email. That's the greatest email I've ever received, and we love it. And not only does it like set the tone for them doing business with us again, but it whitelists our IP because people reply to it and there's nothing for sale in it. It starts a conversation. And so those types of things make you stand out. Like you're different than the other people, and people want to feel special, and they don't want to just feel like they're just another sale. And so if you treat them like that, they'll feel like that, and they won't come in and buying from you. So that matters a lot. And like you brought up, it's much cheaper, even someone who's already visited your site, to get that back there again or to show them the ads because they've already expressed an interest. And it's crazy how many sites and people's stores that we go on and start helping them where they've never set up those flows, or they've never done that, or they have like one abandoned cart email, and it's like whatever the template was in Shopify. And they just don't realize like e-commerce is growing and maturing so much that like you used to be able to get away with that. But if you don't have all the pieces in play, or you don't own your traffic and you have to buy it, you're gonna struggle. And so you have to go into it understanding there's a lot to learn. Can't do it all at once. And if you think you're going to, you'll burn out. And so for us, we always try to, as we teach, figure out a way to make it sustainable. So, okay, there is 7 different flows and each one has 4 or 5 emails. How about for January, you get the abandoned cart flows and the welcome series. And, for February, you do this. And what happens is you try to get too much done in that first 90 days and you get overwhelmed and don't do a lot of it because you're like, oh, I need to learn more. Most people need to stop learning and start doing. They already know enough to make sales. They just had to put all the pieces in place. And so there's that fine balance of figure out what you need to do, create a list, and then just chunk off some every month, move you towards that goal. And in 6 months, you'll look back and go, wow, like I really have, a good store and it's making sales and I'm profitable. Now I can start scaling. And that's why if you look at our success rate, we've had about 1,000 members over the 8 years, and over 200 of them, or around 200, have hit that $1 million mark. And so a 20% out of all of the people that have come through have a success rate, which is crazy different than, there's about 3,000 Shopify sites opened every day. And they say 1 in 200 and some thousand ever make a sale. And then obviously a lot fewer actually make it as a business. So to think like whatever that 0.0001% compared to, 20% hit a $1 mark, we feel really, really good about what we're doing and how we approach a website to make it, do well. And that's, like you said, that's probably why a lot of these bigger brands have got a hold of us, and we've learned a lot from them too.
Nice. So you've mentioned so many actionable items. One is it's still a great time to start e-commerce.
Oh yeah.
Sounds like Shopify is still a great way to go because I know there's a lot of competition out there now.
Yep.
Keeping it simple with your product offerings, knowing your brand.
Be a specialist, don't be a generalist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Making sure that you do have your customer persona, who you're speaking to, and that you're able to simplify the journey. So you're educating, you're informing, you're really building that trust before you go to, the product sales page, and also not jumping out with the discount for the first time buyer, not making people sign up for an email list as the first prompt that they get on your page. Is there anything else that you would recommend to somebody starting out? Because this episode is probably one of the most tangible ones that I've had, probably in my almost 300 episodes, in terms of the number of actionable item steps. Oh, and then you also said, keep it simple in terms of don't try to do everything at once. Just break it down into actions that you can take every month or in a 90-day sprint so that you don't feel the overwhelm.
Yeah. Things that matter, I think packaging matters. That first impression, people used to just throw it in a poly bag, and that worked because it was so new, it didn't matter. yes, it costs a little more money to get them printed or to have a different experience. But I will tell you, after seeing thousands of stores, the ones that pay attention to that and make that a priority, even though it costs them some money, look at that as an investment in your business, because those ones tend to be more successful.
Yeah.
They have a much better chance of success. And I think that is because the message that they tell the customer is you matter and we care about our stuff and how you get it. We have been the optimization partner with a company called Ants and Belts, and you can go to their site. It's literally the greatest belt I've ever worn, ever given to other people. It's got a lifetime warranty. There's just a million reasons why. Every single part of the journey, they've looked at it and they've made sure. And there was a lot of companies that were taking funding and selling way more than them, but they were selling garbage products. And then over time, like they for the first 4 or 5 years, they never even ran a sale. Like it was like not even for an abandoned cart. And so they built this loyal following of people that, like, if someone made a comment about the cost of their belt, like 800 customers went and slaughter the person as to why the belt was so valuable and why it's so nice. Wow. And it really is that great of a product. And so when you care that much, and even to this day, the owners still answer comments on their Facebook ads and still answer the phone for customer service. And they're doing, millions and millions of dollars a year. And they understand that the lifeline of their business is their customer. And so if you're out of touch with them because you make so many sales that you think that that's not important anymore, there's really good ideas that don't make it, or really good businesses that fail strictly because the attitude of the owner. And so I would say, in an answer to your question, invest in the 6 inches between your ears just as much as everything else. Because what I've noticed, I coach several of these business owners, and when they get their head right, their entire team does better, their entire store does better. So most of us as entrepreneurs are the bottleneck in our business. And we blame it on all these other external factors, but it's just not true, because otherwise, why would that be the case every time when the owner upgrades his thinking, then everything works better? It's because those external factors, you see them as a problem or you see them as a solution and how to get that better. So I would say the other part is invest in yourself, learn, be curious, all of that. Because if you're just doing what everybody else is doing, like, you're not going to stand out.
Yeah. Wow, this has been such a robust conversation. I really appreciate your time today, Matthew. And there's so many things that we didn't cover that I could ask, but I'm going to stop it here because there's been so much value packed into this episode already. And we'll have to bring you back on at a later time for another episode. And my last question is, do you have a favorite quote, mantra, verse, words that you live by?
I do. And I'm not sure that it really has that much to do about business, but I always say, shame dies when stories are sold in safe, and when stories are told in safe places. And so much in the entrepreneurial world, most of us have dealt with trauma. If you think about it, like, the definition of trauma is a loss of control. In business, you're never in control. You're kind of managing chaos. And so if you think, the more I've talked about it, the more I realize, like, lots and lots of entrepreneurs came from that. And typically they're building a business to feel better inside. Like, hey, if I do this, or if I'm successful, then I'll feel better. And so in that place of understanding that if you can be a safe place for people, the things that people are embarrassed of or feel bad or feel not good enough or things like that go away, and their business becomes a lot more successful because they can be transparent and vulnerable about what they're struggling with, get help on it, and then do better. But if they're afraid to share that because they're ashamed, then they don't ever actually solve the problem that they really need to. And so for me, I've just realized, like, that if I start and give them permission, if I start with something that I'm vulnerable about, then they have permission to do that. It deepens the connection, and people tend to get a lot more success out of that when they can kind of explore those inner stories that create a lot of the reason why they're doing what they're doing anyways.
Wow. That is so on the nose. So This has been an awesome conversation. Thank you to Matthew Stafford from BuildGrowScale. We'll have your information in the show notes as well. I love that you have so many different ways people can work with you, whatever level they are in their business. And thank you to the audience for watching or listening to this episode of Your Brand Amplified. I'll be back again in a few days with another amazing expert to share their best practices, tips, and tricks to help your business make it to the top in 2024 and beyond.